Solo, a Star Wars story. One of the more interestingly controversial entries into the Star Wars cinematic universe before the movie even came out and people even saw it. There has been so much talk about this movie in the fandom and what it could mean, how it will affect the series, and people have been using the word flop and this and that. Well, I went to go see the movie tonight, and I'm going to say this, okay? First of all, this is a non-spoiler review for Solo, a Star Wars story. I'm going to tell you with this review, my job here is to tell you what to expect and whether or not I think you'll like the movie. And yes, it's not just a yes or no answer here, because it's a bit complicated, and I'm going to get to that without going into any spoilers. But one thing I'll tell you about this movie is that I could not believe, okay, listen to what I'm about to tell you right now. Disney's been going around saying that this movie's going to break records. They are lying to you, I think. I went to go see this movie opening night, the very first screening, very first one. There were 8 people in the movie theater. 8. I have never in my entire life, and I've been to pretty much every single Star Wars opening night showing since, the special editions in 97. And I have never been to a movie, a Star Wars movie, that had 8 people. There was a family of 5 behind me and 2 more even further behind that. And that's it. I don't think this movie's going to do so well. Okay, now the question is, which you're probably wondering is, should I go see this movie? I, of course, being you guys. Okay, a couple things I want to first of all point out. This is a very different movie from Last Jedi. Now, one thing I want to say is that I was one of the first people on YouTube, and it wasn't just me, but I was one of the first people the night Last Jedi came out to go on here and trash the freaking movie. Because I did not like the direction Rian Johnson took with Last Jedi. So, you know that of all these reviewers, I'm definitely not a Disney shill, because I was very let down by Last Jedi. Solo, a Star Wars story, I went in with lowered expectations because I knew about the behind-the-scenes turmoil with the directors being changed. Lord and Miller got taken out. Ronnie Howard, the actor who plays Han Solo, not being that great, yada, yada, yada. And because of the reviews that had come out from the pre-screenings. And I went into it, and I didn't hate this movie. I did not hate this movie at all. It's really not a bad movie. But, it's not a great movie either. But it's not bad. It's somewhere in the middle. And that's why this is going to be a bit more complicated than me just saying, okay, go ahead and see the movie. First and foremost, one of the things this movie did that Last Jedi did not, right, is that it actually kind of rewarded you for being a Star Wars fan. One of my biggest criticisms of Last Jedi is that the movie constantly made fun of the fandom in a very meta way. Now, I'm going to get to some meta stuff here in a minute. But the movie, I felt, was sort of disrespectful to the fandom. And not just the movie, but the way that Lucasfilm was reacting after the movie. Rian Johnson being very condescending on Twitter. J.J. Abrams, the way that people were saying that, oh, if you hate Last Jedi, you're a woman-beating white person. All this nonsense, right? It's all BS. And this movie was sort of like the opposite in that the movie sort of rewarded you for being a hardcore Star Wars fan, but did not overdo it with the fan service. There were so many little nuanced references in this movie to stuff from the EU from literally like 20 years ago that I couldn't believe. I couldn't even believe that I even heard those words in this movie. Specifically one from a video game that was lost in the annals of time. When you see the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about if you played this game. I couldn't believe it. But going into the film, most of us knew kind of what to expect. That this was going to be the movie where Han Solo, and I was dreading this, Han Solo meets Chewbacca, he meets Lando, gets the Falcon, at least, all that stuff. We're going to see the spice mines of Kessel and all that stuff. And it's pretty much what you expect. But that didn't really hurt the movie that much necessarily. What the movie did not do a good job of is getting us to care about the characters, which is the same exact thing that Rogue One did. With Rogue One was a fun little movie, I thought, especially the third act. But I did not give a damn about Jyn Erso had I not read Catalyst. See, if you read Catalyst, you'd care about it a bit more. But if you're a casual fan, you're just not gonna, if you just see the movies, you're not gonna really feel for that character. This movie had a very similar problem. Other than Han and Lando, which we already know their fates because they're in the original trilogy, which takes place after this movie, you just don't care about these characters. You don't really care that much about Kira. You don't care that much about Tobias Beckett, who's the guy that Woody Harrelson plays as. You start to care as the movie progresses, so they were doing a decent job of that as the movie went on, but it never really hit home like, oh my God, I want to see more about this character. I want to read more about this character. That didn't happen. It just didn't happen. The thing about this movie is this. Here, listen to what I'm about to tell you right now. If you are into Star Wars lore, if you are a hardcore fan, you are going to enjoy this movie more than the casual fan. Because if you go see this movie with somebody who has only seen the movies, who's only seen, like, you know, episodes 1 through 8 and maybe Rogue One, they might get a bit confused because there are references to stuff that is outside of those stories. They reference things from some of the books and comics and TV shows that have been out. There are some, especially one cameo from a character that people were not expecting at all to be in a Star Wars movie ever again. And if you're a casual fan, you're going to be like, wait, what? And if you're a hardcore fan who watches like Clone Wars, Rebels, and reads the comics and stuff, you'll be like, okay, well, that makes sense. But it doesn't make that much sense because there's actually a hole here, it's kind of a hole. It's not a huge hole. It's just something that needs to be filled, which I guess that's a hole, right? Well, anyways, so if you're a casual Star Wars fan, or if you're a hardcore fan and you go with like your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever, and they don't know much about Star Wars, after the movie ends, you might want to explain to them, like, you know, without spoiling it, you know, oh, well, this means that means this. So at least you have that. Now, as far as acting goes, I know people are wondering about this. Iden Ehrenreich, the Han Solo guy, yeah, about 80% of this movie, he's just not Han Solo. He's not a bad actor. It's just not the same character. And even though there are like maybe 4 or 5 scenes where he nailed Harrison Ford, I mean, there's a couple parts where he nailed it. The way he speaks, his voice is kind of nasally. It just does not sound like the Han Solo from the prequels. And this is not Han Solo as a teenager. See, he's not going through puberty. He's a grown man in this movie. Again, not the best. Now, Woody Harrelson was great. Paul Bettany was great. Loved him as a villain. It was weird seeing the Vision as a villain. Obviously, Emilia Clarke was okay. Like, I thought she was fine. I don't think she's really trying as hard as maybe she felt like she should, especially close to the end of the movie. But she may, I'm not going to spoil it, but we might see her again someday. That being said, the real knockout, which I'm sure you've heard of, is freaking Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian. Let me tell you something right now. This was the creepiest performance I have seen in one of these movies that wasn't like CGI freaking Peter Cushing. You know what I'm saying? Let me tell you something. Donald Glover sounds exactly like Billy D. Williams. Every line, everything he says, his mannerisms, I could not believe it. I thought that they were dubbing Billy D. Williams' voice over Donald Glover. Childish Gambino nailed this character. This was amazing. And I feel like when you watch the movie and you hear the lines that Billy D. Williams, that Lando Calrissian and Han Solo say, right? They're total Star Wars lines. The Kasdans wrote this movie with extensive knowledge of Star Wars. You know that Lawrence Kasdan is familiar with Han Solo. He wrote Empire, Jedi, and Force Awakens, 3 movies that feature a lot of Han Solo. He knows that character, right? So when you hear the script, when you watch the movie and hear the lines, you're like, yeah, those are Han Solo lines. But just Alden's performance just didn't measure to where it should have. It just didn't at all. So, but if you can forgive that, if you're a super hardcore Han Solo fan, you might be let down. But if you can forgive that, you'll enjoy the movie more. But you can tell, like, that the movie was written. Like, the movie might as well have been written for Harrison Ford. See what I'm saying? Maybe some of that prosthetic makeup or something make him look younger or something. I don't know if they could have pulled that off. But it just... the real knockout of the movie was Donald Glover. Now, some people were also wondering, okay, is it true there's an SJW droid in this movie? Because I've gone on record many times and have talked about how the personal politics in Star Wars, especially Last Jedi, have been pissing me off. I've talked about this extensively. And I'm very fair. I don't think that L3, the droid in this movie, was an SJW. L3's whole gimmick is that she wants equality for droids and humans. Yes, that is true, but it did not come off preachy. It did not come off annoying. I actually thought she was a very likable character. Not quite as likable as K2SO, but still very likable. I did not, in my opinion, see her as being an SJW droid. That's not what it was to me. That's not what they were doing here. And that's one thing I like about this movie is there's no personal politics. It's not preachy at all. And, with Rogue One, they kind of took away, like, the Jedi. Even though Vader was in the movie, there wasn't too much, like, Skywalker stuff in that movie, right? Well, this movie goes a step further and takes away the Empire and Rebellion. Like, the Empire's in the film. We hear about the Rebellion, but it's not a story of the Empire versus the Rebellion like Rogue One. It is a side story completely separate from that conflict with completely different characters. Now, one of the problems with the movie, too, is that I felt like the movie feels like a video game. And that's not a good thing. What I mean by that is this. When you play a video game, you've got like a cutscene, then you've got like a mission, right? Like level 1. Then you've got a cutscene. Then you've got a mission. Then you've got a cutscene. That's what this movie felt like. Like you've got an action piece. Then you've got a cutscene, a short one. Then you have another action piece. That's what the movie felt like. It was more like a game. Now, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, but one of my issues with Last Jedi is that it had way too much meta stuff. It was self-referential. It's like, Luke saying laser sword, and they were making fun of the fans and making fun of the history of Star Wars. This movie does not do that until one scene where they took a meme, a Star Wars meme that has been a meme since the special editions, and they made it into a little thing in the movie that was not too obvious, but it was if you understand the memes. It was one of those things where it was like, wow, like, this is meta, but it was cool. Like, it wasn't offensively meta, but it was meta. See what I'm saying? And again, they brought in a lot of things from the EU, the Dark Horse comics, like I mentioned before, the video games, that I wasn't expecting. So again, you're going to appreciate those things as a Star Wars fan. But the movie does have issues. You just don't care about the characters. The pacing. I don't think it was poorly paced at all, but I did think that it just didn't really feel like a movie. Like, you just didn't care at all. You're just kind of wondering what's going to happen next. And also, the one thing this movie did do differently that from all the other Star Wars movies is that it did not have a big, like, I don't want to spoil it, but you know how every Star Wars movie has like a big war at the end, right? Well, actually, Revenge of the Sith didn't really have that. They were more kind of like more backwards. The war was at the beginning of the movie, but this movie was different. It didn't do that. It was a much more personal story, which I kind of wanted. Like, there was a big fight at the end, but it was nowhere near as big as The Last Jedi, Force Awakens, Return of the Jedi. It wasn't like that at all, and that was cool, but it was also very different, and I liked that they changed it up. It really didn't suck. The movie did not suck. It's just not a movie that I'm really rushing to see again. Almost every Star Wars movie, even Last Jedi that I did not like, I wanted to watch it again. This one, I'm just not sure I want to ever see it again. The score of the film also, the music, they did bring in some classic Star Wars jingles, especially with that special cameo. I popped when I saw that, when I heard that music. That was cool. And the scene with the Millennium Falcon, without going into spoilers, but I don't want to spoil it, but there's a scene with the Millennium Falcon that's awesome. Like, about halfway through the movie, there is an awesome sequence that I absolutely loved. It was my favorite part about the movie. Really a lot of fun. John Powell did the music for this film, and it just wasn't that good unless you heard the John Williams original, like, jingles that were in the film. And also, that being said, special effects of the movie were fine, but the movie had this weird, maybe it was my theater, but it had a very weird sort of grayish look to it, almost like it was like a low budget kind of thing. I don't know if that's done on purpose, but it didn't look... Last Jedi looked better. Look, like, when it comes to, like, filmmaking, okay, I don't like Last Jedi's direction, but Last Jedi, as far as the way it looks visually, is a very well-made movie. Cinematography is fantastic in Last Jedi. You can't deny that. Same thing with Force Awakens. This one felt like a step down. Even Rogue One, I think, had great cinematography. It was very, very, like, very cool. With this one, it was. I sound like Red Letter Media. Very cool. With this one, it felt like a step down. There's actually one scene with the Millennium Falcon that I thought looked a little like bad special edition quality CGI. It was one scene I did not like. But overall, I mean, I have a lot to talk about in the spoiler section, but that's my non-spoiler review. I think if you're a Star Wars fan, you should probably check it out. It's not a terrible movie. It's just got problems, but it's probably one you're not going to see a lot. And if you're one of those people who wants to wait till the Redbox or well, it won't be on Netflix, but Redbox or DVD or Blu-ray, I totally understand that because the movie has no effect on the saga at all. Like, nothing that happens in this movie changes other movies. It's a small story, and really, it doesn't really reveal any new things about Han except for one thing about his backstory that might piss people off as far as his origin. It wasn't explored, but it was one thing that we had heard about. I think Bob Iger or somebody from the production staff talked about it. Somebody from Disney talked about it a few months ago. Yeah, that might piss off the hardcore fans. But other than that, like, it wasn't as bad as people say it is. It was fine. It was okay. I give it like I don't rate movies, but I give it like maybe like a 3 out of 5. You know, where would I rank it among other Star Wars movies? I don't know yet. I liked it more than Attack of the Clones. You know, I did. So it's higher than that. Probably higher than Phantom Menace. I don't know if it's higher than Revenge of the Sith though. I don't know. I don't think it is. It's right around there for me, but it's not terrible. It really isn't. Anyways, let me know what you thought in the comments. Spoiler review tomorrow. We'll talk more then. See you later.